The rise and legacy of Lucius Cornelius Sulla. After its golden generation of generals defeated Carthage, the victorious Roman Republic was the undisputed master of the Mediterranean. However, beset by innumerable contradictions, it began disintegrating from the inside as the 1st century BC began. During this tumultuous time, many political figures attempted to take power, among whom was a man who, through desperation, cunning, and martial prowess, became perhaps the most powerful man in Roman history. In this new series on the history of the Roman Republic, we will cover the life and times of Rome's anti-Caesar, Lucius Cornelius Sulla, champion of the Optimates, bane of the populace, and the first Roman general ever to march an army on the Eternal City. In 138 BC, only 8 years after Carthage's final destruction, the protagonist of our story, Sulla, was born in Rome into a branch of the prestigious Cornelii gens. On the surface, his heritage should have guaranteed a privileged life, but unfortunately for Sulla, this wasn't the case. In contrast to many of the more fortunate Cornelii family lines, such as that of the Scipios, Sulla's offshoot was relatively destitute. At the time, none of his clan had risen above the rank of praetor for several generations. According to one tale which has come down to us, Sulla's wet nurse was carrying her young ward through the streets of Rome one day when she was approached by a mysterious woman. Upon seeing the child, the enigmatic figure spoke the words, "Puer tibi et rea publici tui felix," the infant will be a source of felicity to you and the state. However, such predictions seemed far removed from Sulla's experiences as he grew into a young man, and by the time he came of age, his father died, leaving him nothing, and reducing him to inhabiting the same house as a slave. Lacking money and access to high society, Sulla, blessed with a mane of golden red hair and blue eyes, found friends among the vagrants of Roman society. Actors, something that only decreased his standing in the eyes of the aristocrats. It was a stroke of pure luck that changed Sulla's fate. In a short period of time, both the youngster's mistress, Nicopolis, and his stepmother passed away, leaving him a substantial sum of money. Now a man of means, Sulla was duly elected quaestor for 107 BC, being assigned to the staff of consul Gaius Marius. Ongoing since 111 BC, the so-called Jugurthine War was Rome's desert Vietnam, exposing the absolute worst of Roman politics and the weaknesses of its military. Numidian ruler Jugurtha was avoiding retribution by bribing senators and assassinating rivals, while the legions were repeatedly ambushed by his guerrilla warriors familiar with the rugged terrain of the Maghreb. To rectify this situation, Marius launched an expedition into Africa, personally leading the main force, but leaving his deputy Sulla behind in Italy with the crucial task of assembling a large cavalry force. Evidently, the greenhorn quaestor succeeded and brought a force of riders to Marius in the spring of 106 BC. Sulla turned on his notorious charm immediately upon arrival, making soldiers, officers, and even Marius admire him. As the war went on, the Romans eventually captured a fort near the river Malucha where most of Jugurtha's treasury was stored, only to be informed that Jugurtha had captured Cirta in their rear. Marching back, the Romans confronted and managed to convincingly beat the king and his allies. In this victory, Sulla emerged as the star of the show. First to engage, he hit the enemy flank at a crucial moment, routing the entire enemy army and capturing Cirta. With the war in Africa concluded, the Marian army was called back to Italy to fight an invasion of Germanic tribes in the Cimbrian War. Sulla wasted no time in employing his well-renowned magnetism to split the Germanic Marsi tribe off from their kin and persuade them to become allies of Rome, a great diplomatic boon to the cause. Realizing Marius's shadow would always veil his achievements, Sulla went to serve Rome's other consul, Catulus, in the hopes that military acclaim of his own would quicken his ascent. In 101 BC, Sulla remedied a supply shortage among Catulus troops so effectively that not only was he able to feed Catulus armies, but Marius soldiers as well, causing Marius jealousy to flare up once again. Thanks to Marius' politically motivated deployment, Sulla was relegated to a relatively minor role in the final Roman victory of the Cimbrian War at Vercelli. After this, Sulla returned to Rome, and his political career began in earnest. Just as the rising starlet was about to take the next step in his career, the tribune Livius Drusus, initially supported by Sulla due to his desire for a strong Senate, was assassinated in 91 for backing citizenship for Rome's Italian allies. With that murder, the Republic descended into a self-inflicted civil war of terrible scale, the Social War. Sulla gradually became a hero. Although he began the war acting as legate to one of the consuls, he swiftly rose to command an army of his own and drove it deep into rebel territory, besieging Pompeii in 89 BC. When a disgruntled force under the command of another legate slew their arrogant commander, Sulla acted decisively to resolve the situation. Countermanding the wishes of some officers who wished to have the mutineers viciously punished, Sulla recognized the need to keep solidarity during the war and particularly the siege at Pompeii. Instead of acting draconian, Sulla took advantage of the inevitable remorse felt by the soldiery, simply informing them that he expected reparations in the form of greater courage and doggedness during their coming battles. When the army finally arrived, it fought a vicious urban battle against a hastily organized Marian force, and, when Sulla personally intervened, managed to set Marius and his allies to flight. Marius, for his part, managed to escape the clutches of his rival and went into exile all the way to Africa. Sulpicius, however, wasn't so lucky. Betrayed by a slave and discovered by sullen troops in a villa near Rome, the tribune was executed, his head sent to the consul, and all his laws annulled. However, as though to show Sulla's conservative and even-handed nature, the consul freed the slave as a reward and then had him thrown from the Tarpeian Rock for betraying his master. Having secured the city with his legionary army, Sulla attempted to right what he saw to be the Republic's terrible problem: the tribunes, who he considered to be out of control. To that end, legislation that favored the Senate was passed, restoring to that reverent body sole authority to enact new laws, while the power of the people's tribune was diminished. In our next episode on the life and times of Lucius Cornelius Sulla, we will explore the proconsul's campaigns in Anatolia against the wily and cunning Mithridates VI, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see them. Please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. It helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind YouTube channel subscribers. Please subscribe for more educating history contents.